This is continuing coverage. The Black Swan murder trial of Ashley Benefield from the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today. Now back to the courtroom.
What I'm showing you here is the 3D scan data of the scene. So I didn't take this data. This was done by Manatee County investigators. I took the individual scan worlds and then blended them together. This is a process called registration. And I'll move you through it. Hopefully we don't get a jump between my laptop and what we see on the screen. So again, this is not a computer game. These are actually millions of individual data points. You can see in some of these places the individual spots. Each one of those is a data point collected by the scanner. And as we look down on the scene here, you're looking at the sort of wood-looking floor. You can see a tape on the floor. And now I'm going to switch perspective such that we're going to slide down to the side to allow you to get a feeling for what we're looking at. So as I move through this, you're now looking towards the doorway, exiting the bedroom, over the top of the room. Please.
This is room.
That's my understanding. There are certainly fired cartridge casings, 4 of them in the room, as well as a bullet hole going into the wall here. That's correct. Where I'm moving my hand cursor right here in the data is a mattress. Yes, I can swing us around so that we look into the room even, if you wish. I come down in the data and put us in the doorway. So that's a view into the room, and we can then even come into the room in that manner and pan around and see the room. Within the room, as I mentioned, we have a perforation into the wall, a nice round hole. As I recall, this is impact site 11 maybe, but if I swing around here, I can actually show you where that is. So the shadows you're seeing on the wall here are from the tools the investigators use. These are very common tools in our industry, trajectory rods. For this type of scanner, they often put a sphere over that rod, so that's why you see a round shape there as well. But the main point here is that there is an impact site in the wall right here. That's where a bullet hole exists. From that, I took 2 different approaches to create this trajectory for visualization for you. One, I simply took the scanned data, basically their trajectory rod in place, and looked at the many, many data points on that and extrapolated a line from it. If we use that method, the trajectory for that looks like this. So this is the blue line that comes out of that, and I'll swing you directly above it so you can get what's called the azimuth viewpoint first. I'm going to click us back into what's called an orthogonal view. So looking at this trajectory, you can see how as viewed, it has a slight left to right aspect to it, and it's traveling from the bottom of the screen as you're seeing it into the wall at top of the screen. Now, the county investigators did a nice thing. They did 2 different ways with this trajectory, not only the trajectory rod itself, but they took the rod and then put a laser on one end and shined it across the room, so the bottom wall as you're looking at it here, and measured where that dot was on the wall. So I simply took their data and connected the dots also. So between the perforation in the wall to their laser dot, and that line looks like that, so green and blue. In the trajectory world with walls, this is decent agreement between these 2 methods as far as the accuracy that we come to. And in fact, if I put plus or minus 5-degree cones, I talked about the error earlier, on both of these, we can see that those 2 cones look like that. That's actually a 10-degree cone for each of them, the green and the blue. And so from the data that I have for this case, for this one shot, I would include any area within that cone, either one of those cones, as the area where the firearm would have been at the time that shot was fired. I can also show you this from the side view to give you an idea of the vertical component. So I'm going to remove the left wall of the bedroom as you're looking at it here, and I'm going to swing you down. And from this vantage point, you can see how there is a downward component to these shots as well, going into that, I believe, again, number 11 hole within the bedroom.
That assistant's been fired while she's standing.
There are certainly multiple places along these cones where a shooter could be standing. So basically any hypothesis or any scenario that puts the gun in those cones, including that one, would be on the table. So we've seen the up and the down, the vertical component here. We've looked at the azimuth, the left and the right from above. What I'll demonstrate for you now with the data is I'm going to take you to the right. Please. Yeah.
As that bullet, that shows no location.
That's correct. And I'll show you that picture of that bullet eventually. But this bullet, based on the damage that the bullet shows, as well as the nice round hole going into the wall, this is a miss of the decedent. This did not strike the decedent. If I take you to the side of the cone here, the far right side of the rightmost cone, our most right option, from that position directly over it, you look down the hallway area, you actually, you actually cannot see where that bullet struck the wall. This area right here is to the right of the bullet's impact site. We actually have to move, as I will now, over into this area, and I'll get us right at the edge of the wall. We have to come all the way over here in order to get to the impact site, which from my examination of the images is more in this area. So somewhere on the tile in here is a bullet impact site, a ricochet off the floor. That bullet goes on and then barely perforates the drywall, or penetrates the drywall up in this area. So
and that's another, is that correct?
Correct. Sorry, I'm on to bullet 19, as I recall, was its designator for those 2.
Let me ask, and one goes in the wall and one goes down the hall.
That's correct.
Again, let's say not.
I don't have physical evidence that would allow me to establish that, correct? But that bullet in the wall down there also expresses no soft damage. It is also one that did not strike.
A miss.
A miss. So from the 3D laser scan data, and I don't have a good trajectory or a good impact site to look at here. I was unable to go in and examine the floor. If I'd been able to find that impact site, I might have been able to refine that trajectory into the wall a little bit better and give us a more defined trajectory. But other than the ballistic accessibility aspect of going down that hallway, I can't do that here. Just they're two separate trajectories that have some slight divergence in the lateral aspect.
Did I ask you what degree of acid stress?
I think we covered that turf, just that plus or minus 5 degrees is an industry standard, and based on having shot a lot of stuff, including walls, for a trajectory like that, assuming the trajectory rod was placed properly, about plus or minus 5 degrees is appropriate.
Did you have an Mr. Hay preparation for responses case?
I wouldn't describe it as an interview by me. I was certainly present while she described the incident.
And with respect to her description of anything at all were consistent?
I can't think of anything that would necessarily be inconsistent. The key points that come to mind, where I remember her saying she stepped from her right to her left during the course of fire, that the decedent was moving rapidly in all sorts of patterns or manners, which would fit with the gunshot wounds entering the body in different angles. So from that perspective, no.
Just a moment. That's all. Thanks.
So you were able to give about where every shot's correct?
That's correct.
But as for the human, cannot.
That's correct. I don't have any other sort of anchors to bring the decedent's body into play with the scene because of the lack of perforation.
And with reference to the chest, I saw you kind of turning several times. So had terms used such as front and side. So if you could just show the jury, where was this?
To the best of my recollection, and of course I could refresh my memory with images if it's helpful, but to the best of my recollection, it's in this general area on the side of the chest, and then it goes in and is recovered just under the skin in the back. So if you're sort of the firearm location, it would place the upper body in a vague general orientation like this.
So if you turned your body.
This way?
Right. And keep turning until you get to the point where that's the positioning of gun.
For the upper body, yes, I'd have no way of,
Thank
correct,
you.
yeah.
Redirect?
No, sir.
Can this witness be released?
Yes.
Sir, you're releasing your subpoena, you're free to go.
Thanks, sir.
It's going to take him a minute to put that away, and it's about 10 minutes after 3, so I'm going to give you your afternoon break. Give you 10 minutes, go on back, stretch, get something to drink, maybe a little snack if you want it, and we'll get you back out here as soon as we can. Oh, no deliberations, don't talk with anybody about the case, and don't do any research. All right? Figured that's better than having you.
Hustle. Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
All right, we'll stay to recess for 10 minutes.
Thank you.
I'm not sure which one that was on. I think it was on
On the
young Mr. Galvano.
Yeah.
That'll be fine. This last.
This is Dr. Emma Lou, Your Honor, L.E.W.
Well, don't bring her in yet. I was just asking. While we're on the subject, how long do you think she's going to be? More than an hour?
Probably not. I would say maybe 45 minutes, my best guess.
No problem. I just versus 4 hours.
Correct. No problem.
State, have you already deposed her?
Yes.
All right, so you know
Yes.
what she's going to say,
Yes.
presumably what your question is going to be.
Yes.
I only ask because that will take us, assuming we start in the next, 5 or 10 minutes, 5 minutes, to 4:20. And I guess at that point, probably let the jury go for the evening. Well, you can announce you rest. We can let the jury go for the evening. You guys can say if you're going to call any rebuttal or not, but then maybe one pass through the jury instructions. I'd appreciate that. Okay.
Judge, the last thing the state wants to bring up is that, we didn't bring it up during the question, but I think that Your Honor had clearly told Mr. Taylor at the bench what he was allowed to ask Detective Warren, and that did not include, don't you find it odd that the state did not call you as a witness? And I think we had litigated close to that issue, if not directly on point, and then you directed him not to. And I know we're down to a few witnesses left, but it's been an ongoing attempt to subvert justice by Mr. Taylor to continue to do things like that, speaking when we've objected and continuing to speak. And as to the don't you think it's odd, it was actually Mr. O'Keefe who told Mr. Taylor, hey, you need to object to this. So that's a whole different objection I have, that Mr. O'Keefe continues to practice law in this courtroom. But I just think that at this point, the state is asking for you to sanction Mr. Taylor in some capacity about disregarding your continued rulings. And I understand that that may not be something we address right now, but it seems to be an ongoing issue in the state. That last one with Detective Warren was the most outrageous.
Okay. I'm not going to take that matter up right now.
Yes.
We got witnesses and other matters to deal with, so.
I just wanted to get it on the record before we move too far away from this. Thank you for letting me be heard.
Absolutely. All right, looks like we've got everybody back. Is Dr. Lou ready? State, are you ready?
Yes, thank you.
Do you need
I don't so.
All right, y'all can have a seat. Welcome back, everybody. Any deliberations, contact outside the jury about case or research? Everybody says no. All right, Mr. Taylor, call your next witness. Get about 12 to 15 inches from the microphone. Can allow your voice. Does adjust up, down, left, right.
Thank you, Honor. Good afternoon.
Could you tell us your full name and spell your last name?
Yes, my name is Emma Lou, L-E-W.
And hold any professional.
Yes, I am a licensed physician in the state of Florida, so I have an MD degree.
All right, Dr. Lou. Let's take a moment. Let me just run you through your undergraduate education. Where
Yes.
did you receive that?
I graduated from the University of Saskatchewan College of Medicine in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada.
Following your college degree, you attended professional school.
I did a one-year rotating internship in Vancouver, British Columbia, and started my pathology training in Vancouver. I completed my pathology training in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, worked for 3 years as a staff pathologist at the Royal University Hospital, then came down to Miami in July of 1991.
And with respect to your work experience, what brought you to Miami-Dade County?
I wanted to train in the best facility that there was for forensic pathology, and everyone in Canada and in the States said, go to Joe Davis in Miami, so I did.
And did you eventually rise to the position of the medical examiner in Miami-Dade County?
Yes, when I was in training, I was an associate medical examiner. Then Dr. Davis offered me a permanent staff position, and I was an associate for 10 years.
I want to ask you to tell us, you can approximate the number of autopsies that you performed.
In Miami-Dade County, it should be at least 5,000.
As part of your duties as a medical examiner in Miami-Dade County, Doctor, did you also respond to crime scenes?
Yes, we responded to scenes of violent and suspicious deaths.
Would you tell us why? Well, first, let me ask, is it typical for the pathologist to respond to crime scenes? And depending on that issue, why you chose to?
Yes, in Miami-Dade County, when law enforcement needed a medical opinion, whoever was on call as the medical examiner would respond. And the purpose is twofold. Number one, so that we can provide an opinion about the circumstances of death or the types of injuries on the body, and also for our benefit, so that I can see or we can see the body in the context of its surroundings and be able to better interpret our findings at the time of autopsy.
Do you teach any courses?
Yes, I used to teach in the medical examiner death investigation course, and I still teach for the Carnival Cruise Line's security conference, and I will be lecturing in the Miami-Dade Police Homicide Investigations course.
And how about gunshot wounds? Have you taught courses in gunshot?
Not entire courses, but I have taught the section about gunshot wounds in death investigation courses.
Let's not take anything for granted and be kind enough. Would you explain to us, Dr. Lou, what is an autopsy?
An autopsy is the examination of a dead body. It consists of two parts. One we call the external examination, and that's when we look at the outside of the body and describe such things as height, weight, color of hair, eyes, scars, tattoos, any evidence of medical intervention, that is, any evidence that paramedics or doctors and nurses may have treated the decedent, and then any evidence of injury. After looking at the outside of the body, both front and back, and in the orifices, then we do the internal examination. And that's when we open up the body cavities to examine all of the organs and tissues inside the body cavities, from the brain inside the head down to the pelvic organs. That is an autopsy.
Dr. Lou, were you asked to assist in this case?
I believe I was, yes.
Would you tell us how?
I believe you contacted me.
And what did you do in preparation for your testimony today?
I reviewed the autopsy report. I reviewed some of the autopsy photographs, and then other circumstantial evidence, as well as having spoken also with Mrs. Benefield.
Okay, I need you to try to keep your voice up. Did that include being present for Miss Benefield explaining what had happened?
Yes, I had made a previous trip to Bradenton and had met with Mrs. Benefield.
I'd like to ask you, Dr. Dr. Liu, about the gunshots in this case.
Yes.
Will you tell us how many there were?
There were 3 separate gunshot wounds.
And would you please explain them?
Yes, one was a superficial gunshot wound on the right upper arm, and that we call a grazed gunshot wound. That was one of the gunshot wounds. Shall I explain the direction?
Please.
Now, you probably heard about pathways of gunshot wounds from Dr. Vega, but as a quick refresher, if, for example, a gunshot wound was from front to back and right to left, that is relative to the person shot, not to you, not to Mr. Taylor, but relative to the person shot. So if it's from front to back and right to left, it is coming in from the victim's front towards the back and from his right side towards his left side.
And was there another gunshot wound?
Yes, there was another gunshot wound on the right side of the chest, just outside of the right nipple.
Please, the trajectory.
And yes, the pathway of that gunshot wound happened to be from front to back and right to left. And I'm sure Dr. Vega told you it just nicked the bottom of the right fifth rib, went through the right lower lobe of lung, then through this part of the spine, the bone of the spine, then the left lower lobe of lung, and then nicked the back of the left 10th rib.
And lastly, was there a third gunshot wound?
Yes, there was a gunshot wound. This time it was a through-and-through gunshot wound, or what we call a perforating gunshot wound, that entered the inside back of the right thigh, went through both right lower leg bones, and came out the outside of the right lower leg just below the knee. And that pathway was from back to front, left to right, and upward through the right lower leg.
Let me, if I may, use this to show you a picture and have you explain, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you mentioned that the abrasion wound to the arm. Could you tell us what the trajectory was for that?
In my opinion, the pathway of that bullet was from front to back, upward, and slightly left to right.
Okay, so how, Dr. Liu, are you able to reach a decision like that on something like an abrasion?
Through experience and training, having had hundreds of gunshot wound cases and seen thousands of gunshot wounds and supervised hundreds more cases.
Okay, let me show you two demonstrative aids and ask the court's permission that Dr. Liu could step down. I wonder if we could have these also. I could set these up. Dr. Liu, here is the pointer that will help you.
State, feel free to reposition as you need so you can see what's going on.
Thank you, Judge.
With court's permission,
Yes,
I
ma'am, you
ask
can step
Dr.
down.
Liu to
Thank
step
you.
down.
State, have you already seen these?
Yes. Not until now, but I just saw them.
Okay.
You have preference of which one you'd like to start with. Okay, with this one. All right, would you tell us what that represents, Dr. Liu?
This is the grazed or superficial gunshot wound on the outside of the right outer arm. I know there's a
Yes, a rod.
point on the
We have three.
Now, the reason I know that this is a grazed gunshot is from the end here. Now, the direction of it, you see this edge is a little bit more rounded, and because it's a deeper layer, I know it's a part of the wound here. Now, as the projectile skips across the end, because it's superficial, it raises skin, causes skin tears, raises skin tags. Now, there's some skin tag here. The best one is one right here, the shape tag. And for simplicity, how I remember pathway of grazing is that the skin tags point toward the gun. So, if it's pointing in this direction, the gun is somewhere along the line here. So the bullet, therefore, is coming in this direction, going from front to back. This is the front, this is back, going from front to back and upward. And because it's on this part of the arm, you can see it's slightly to my left, to my right. So this is from front to back, upward, and slightly left to right.
If I may.
This is the gunshot wound that we just spoke about. You can see how it's going front to back and upward. This is the right nipple. This is the second gunshot wound. but it's been a bit changed or altered because this back portion that's straight was an incision made by the doctors in hospital. So the gunshot wound itself is this round part. Now this is the one that goes from front to back and right to left. The bullet was found by Dr. Vega on the left side of the back. Now there's something special about this gunshot wound that Dr. Vega may have told you already. After going through the nicking the right fifth rib and the right lower lobe of lung, it then hits the spine. Now, the skull closely surrounds the brain and protects the delicate brain. The spinal cord is an extension of the brain, and the spinal cord is protected by the spine, which is made up of multiple blocks of bone. When a projectile cuts across the bone of the spine, even though it doesn't touch the spinal cord, the energy that is expended by the bullet impacting the bone is transmitted to the delicate spinal cord. And what this wound will do, because the bullet went across the bone of the T10 vertebrae, it causes a spinal cord shock. And the result is paralysis of the legs. I know because I've had cases like this where a bullet not even going through the bone of the spine, just passes by the side of the spine, caused the man to fall on his back, and he was heard to say, "I can't feel my legs." So that's something that's significant and important about this gunshot wound.
All right. I think you can probably return to your seat if you like. Does it have some water in it?
It does. It's too complex for me.
Let me see if I can help.
Not too much. That's me, how the right there.
Dr. Liu, did you have an opportunity prior to your testifying here today to meet and observe and listen to Miss Benefield explain the events that took place on that day?
Yes, I did. It may have been last year that I did that.
Is there anything at all with respect to your findings that is inconsistent with the explanation Miss Benefield gave?
I believe that Mrs. Benefield's account is consistent with the evidence on the body, and I can demonstrate that.
At the time that you observed Miss Benefield explain these events, did she know what the actual physical evidence was, the actual
Objection.
forensic
Hearsay,
evidence?
If she can answer without speculating.
I do not know. However, usually the person doing the shooting does not know about the autopsy results. And even if they got the autopsy report, they would need someone to translate the autopsy report for them. So I doubt it, but I am speculating.
Were you struck by the explanation you received in light of that?
Objection, relevant.
I'll sustain.
One last question, Dr. Liu, if I may. How many times, you can approximate, have you appeared as an expert pathologist, testified in court?
During my career, at least 500 times, and then maybe 20-some times more after I retired.
And the vast majority of those occasions, did you testify for the defense or for the state?
Most of those times I testified for our state attorney.
I have nothing further, Dr. Liu. Give me just a moment. Dr. Liu, would it be helpful if I were to volunteer my law clerk to come up and allow you to show with the trajectory rods the wounds that were sustained by deceased?
I believe it would add a new dimension to my testimony. Yes.
Okay. Judge, with your permission, may I?
Yes.
Come on up, Will.
May I step down, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am, please do.
May Dr. Liu step down?
Now, I believe that based on our gunshot, Benefield indicated that more.
Objection.
I'm going to sustain.
Okay, Dr. Liu, you just can't say what Ms. Benefield told, just based upon your...
I believe the first gunshot.
I would object to that.
opinion, Judge.
I'm going to need you to approach, please.
Dr. Luke, without regard to anything that Ms. Benefield may have said that you heard, based upon your expertise and your own conclusions that you reached, do you have an opinion as to which one of these shots may have been fired first?
I believe that the right upper arm raised gunshot wound was the shot.
Are you able to say why? What independent evidence exists that leads you to that conclusion?
I had based my circumstances now provided to me.
Okay. And would that be consistent, the upper right arm wound, would it be consistent with the bullet that went down the hall, for example, and lodged in a book?
Yes, it would be, because it didn't go into the body, it just went across the skin. So the bullet would be free to continue on into another room.
Okay, and because it is just a graze, it would not have any tissue effect or mushrooming, as they say, correct?
Objection.
If she can testify to that from her knowledge and experience.
Because it only grazed, nothing went into the hollow point nose of the laptop to cause one more mush, so it would be more or less.
All right, now you've told us, Dr. Liu, about the shock to the spinal cord from the shot that entered the chest.
Yes, only one and right back.
Would that have, in your opinion, affected Mr. Benefield's ability to stand?
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, it would cause out with shock, cause outlet, cause all.
And in falling, would it be consistent that his legs would go up in the air almost as if he slipped on a banana peel?
Yes, that would be consistent, and I can demonstrate.
Please.
With the right side facing the
Judge, with the court's permission, could the jurors perhaps stand so that they could see this demonstration?
With the right side facing.
Judge, I'm confused as to what we're demonstrating.
We're demonstrating the shot to the leg.
Yes.
Oh, the shot to the leg.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, folks, if you need to stand to reposition yourself.
Now, the entrance was on the right side. So the entrance was on the right side of the back of the neck, and the exit was here. Now, you can see that the gun would be somewhere along, so you can see how distant the pathway would be from getting shot while on the ground, with the gun being in this position, so going in here and coming out here.
Okay, so this would be, in effect, a snapshot in time.
Yes, it happens very quickly.
All right. And would it be consistent, Dr. Liu, with the shot to the chest, paralysis, Mr. Benefield falling backwards, his legs going up in the air, and another shot going through the leg?
Yes.
All right.
The evidence on the body, which consists of those gunshot wounds, is consistent with that.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Will. I have one last question for you, Dr. Liu. You can take the witness stand. Do you recall whether there was any other injury to Mr. Benefield that would be consistent with his legs going up in the air and him falling backwards so that his head would hit a tile floor?
Yes, Dr. Vega found an abraded contusion on the back of the head. A contusion is a bruise. An abraded contusion means that there's a little bit of scraping of the skin or crushing of the skin in the center of that bruise. That is entirely consistent with Mr. Benefield's back of the head striking either the wall or the floor as he fell on his back.
Thank you very much, Dr. Liu. I have no further questions.
I just want to ask you about the leg wound.
Yes.
For a moment. You're not saying that that is the only position that he could have been in, are you?
No, I am not saying that.
Okay, so there are other positions that maybe could have produced that wound path?
Yes.
Okay. The one that you are describing is just one that is consistent with it?
That is correct.
And when you said his spinal cord would be, I don't know what you said, shocked maybe?
Yes.
Concussed? I don't know what you said. And his legs would go paralyzed.
Yes.
Does that normally mean that they stiffen, they straighten? Does it mean they crumble? What is
Different people react differently depending on the position that they're in. And paralysis usually means just not being able to move.
Okay, so depending on maybe what movement they're doing at the time, that's what they're going to continue.
Possibly, yes.
So if he is walking towards someone, fall backwards with paralyzed legs?
Well, we weren't there, so I don't know exactly his body positioning and movements.
Okay. And you spoke about the abraded contusion on the head, and that can be consistent with falling
Yes.
from a gunshot. Can it also be consistent with being drug out of the house by EMTs?
Not unless that part of the head would be struck on something, because the contusion is a bruise which requires blunt force.
Right. So if, for instance, he was being drug out and hit the door jamb or something, bounced his head, could it have caused that kind of abraded contusion on the head?
Well, done with enough force, that is possible.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
One, Dr. Liu, would the abrasion wound to the right arm of Mr. Benefield be consistent with him lunging towards Miss Benefield?
Remember, the pathway is from front to back and upward. So if he was lunging and you were the shooter, you can see how that would be consistent.
That's all. Thank you.
Do you have any questions on that? All right, can this witness be released? Can the witness be released?
Yes, sir.
State, may you released from your subpoena? You're free to go.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Taylor?
We have this one issue left.
Okay. All right, members of the jury, there's a legal argument I need to take up. If you could step out for about 10 minutes for me, we'll do that, then we'll bring you right back. No deliberations, no communicating with anybody about what we've talked about the case, and don't do any research on any of the issues. We'll get you right back as soon as we can. Okay, oh, you all can have a seat. The jury's out. And was this the issue, the Richardson?
No, this is the DNA issue.
Oh, yes.
And I have the following case for the court. Ladies,
Thank you.
may I?
Yes, sir.
More continuing coverage is on the way. The Black Swan murder trial of Ashley Benefield from the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today. Press subscribe now.